Welcome to the Moneymakers podcast, brought to you by Syfe. Syfe is an exciting education platform for women with a goal to increase diversity and inclusion in early stage investing. This podcast is a finance, innovation, and investing show for amazing women everywhere of all ages. Each fortnight, we will feature an inspiring woman from the investing and finance sector, or a female founder with a special focus on Asia. To receive a 10% discount on all of our courses, go to syfewomen.com and use promo code podcast10. And today's guest is Grace Cheng, Director of Investment Research at Syfe. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you, Tanya. Very happy to be here with you.
Very excited for this session. It's been a long time coming. We've been planning this for some time. So wonderful to have you with us today and looking forward to releasing this episode. So perhaps we can start with a short introduction to yourself and what you're up to at the moment.
Okay, yeah, sure. So right now, I work in investment research at Syfe. So this means that, I help out on the content side as well as thinking of improving the current suite of products that we have on the platform across like Syfe Wealth and Syfe Trade. And then I joined about 5 months ago, and I came from sort of like a traditional asset manager in Templeton. And then before that, I was doing like sell-side research. So, researching about fixed income, about bonds for 2 years.
Fantastic. And you're based in Singapore, Grace?
Yes, I am.
Good. Same as me. It's been very hot recently, hasn't it?
It has.
Wow,
Yeah,
summer's come
so
early.
hard. It's so hard to like find things to do on the weekends, like with kids, when it's so hot outside.
Tell me about it. Yeah. Do you have a pool?
No, I don't have a pool.
No, that's literally the only thing. You are welcome to come and use my pool, and the children can play anytime you like.
Oh, thank you.
So let's dig in a little bit around your university days. So obviously you're based in Singapore. Did you grow up in Singapore?
For the most part, yeah. So I was born in Shanghai, but I did most of my formal schooling up until junior college in Singapore.
Okay. And then you headed to Colombia. And tell me what took you over there and what did you study?
Yeah, so I think it was down to like a process of elimination of what I wanted to be, so what I wanted to do. So actually for my degree, I did engineering, but it's not really about building bridges. It's what it's called industrial engineering and operations research, but what we jokingly call it imaginary engineering. Because most of the stuff that we did were very like data heavy. You're thinking about like processes, so it could come down to like managing traffic patterns, like the queuing system, and different like operational processes. But a lot of my including myself and some of my friends, we ended up in finance. Yeah, but in terms of like sort of how we got there, or how I got there, I knew that I wanted to, so after like A-levels, I knew that I wanted to do something that's quite quantitative. So I really like math, I really like science, so I thought that seems like the way to go. But I didn't really want to be a scientist, do like chemistry or physics or like pure mathematics. And I wanted something that's also more creative, and hence I wanted to go to a school where I could sort of do both. So Columbia has engineering, and then a neighboring college called Barnard. They're very known for like the arts. So I was able to do a dance minor when I was at Barnard. And I think that's the main reason like why I wanted to go to Columbia, so that I didn't have to sort of just be somewhat constrained by the requirements of my degree. Yeah. So I was able to take like all these math classes, computer science classes, and along with, like art history, dance and economics, of course.
That's fantastic. What a great combo. So tell me about dancing. Are you still dancing?
I try, but not as much as I've done before. Yeah, I think I'm always trying to like get back to it. But the thing is, most of the class times are like either on weekends or like after work. Yeah. So I haven't really been able to do it. But but I love it, and I would love to like do it more.
I hope you're dancing with the children at home.
Yes. I am.
Good. And so your first sort of job out of formal education was at Barclays. And I think that was in the US. Is that right? Was it in New York?
Right. That was in New York for 2 years.
Yeah. So you came out of college and you just decided you wanted to stay in the US for a period of time, or the role presented itself? Was there some kind of, what was the journey to that role?
Yeah, I mean, so for I think most I think this is probably still the case now, but the sort of recruitment season starts when you're in junior year, so the third year of college, and then all these companies come to campus, and you think about what you want to do. Firstly, for that summer, the summer before you enter the workforce, I mean the year before you enter the workforce, but also like longer term. And back then, I was just thinking about what I wanted to do, and then so tying it back to like what I've done before and what I enjoy doing and learning about in class. Yeah, and then after just interviewing, sort of just trying things out, right? Going to different like sessions to learn about what people do in their jobs, and then interviewing and meeting, sort of different people in all these different roles. I figured that based on what I wanted to do, like I probably had a good chance of being able to find something in the US, in New York more specifically, being that it's like a huge financial hub.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it just at that point in time, I really wanted to just stay in New York for a bit longer. And so yeah, quite lucky that I was able to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. And then, so you were there for a couple of years more and
Mhm.
then came home to Singapore. Was there a catalyst for coming back?
Yeah, so it's a personal reason why I came back. So at that time, my fiance was here, it's my husband now,
Right.
and then yeah, I just didn't really want to be away for for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I think also for like visa reasons, being on like the work visa, it was somewhat restrictive in terms of what jobs you could go into next. Yeah, but I think mostly it was the reason that I wanted to come home and to be closer to family.
Yeah.
And I
It-
think at the time too, sorry, just to add on,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I worked a lot with like US institutions, and at the time, I think even now, a lot of the opportunities are in Asia. So I always knew that I wanted to be, in Asia longer term.
Yeah.
But of course, I just feel like having that personal reason kind of moved that forward a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was love.
Yes.
Love brought you home. So you're back in Singapore and you take a job at Franklin Templeton, where you stayed for over 7 years as a product manager. Can we talk about that a little more? What you did there, things you learned and took forward into your current role, which is at Syfe.
Yeah. So if I just could explain what I did before in Barclays. So I was part of the index research team. So an index, is like a way of classifying a set of securities. It could be bonds, it could be stocks, right? So maybe the most famous one is like S&P 500. But for fixed income, because there are just a lot more securities, so a lot of these indices would have like thousands of bonds, and then managers would try to track the index in order to match the performance in the profile, or they try to outperform. So in my role there, we're trying to find solutions for clients who are either trying to match the returns or use analytics to think of like outperforming. Yeah, so role like research pieces, thought about like construction. So for instance, something that's quite common is like to market weight, right? So for instance, Apple is huge, as a huge market cap, so obviously you have the biggest allocation in an index. Similarly, right, so US treasuries, they have the most amount outstanding, so they will be the largest too. But there are ways to like think about, do you want to weigh it differently? So you can weigh it by debt to GDP. So meaning that the countries that have a lower debt to GDP, they could have an outsized, slightly larger allocation in the index. So we worked on like these things, sort of capture like, smart beta. Yeah. And then I think one of the, I really like this concept that I learned in school. It's called the knapsack problem, or trying to like, thinking of presenting a problem in that way, which is, you imagine that you're going camping, and then you have a knapsack that has a limited capacity, right? Maybe like 20 liters or 40 liters. And then you need to put everything that you need for your trip in the bag. But you also want to pack it in a way that it makes it easy to retrieve, right? So for instance, you want to have your like umbrella or like poncho on the side, you don't have your water bottle on the side. So you sort of, the order in which you put things and the amount of stuff that you put in would sort of affect how your experience using it after becomes. And then this applies in finance because in a lot of cases, right, we're trying to find the optimal mix of assets in, when we're trying to like invest, or if you're trying to like think of, if I want to reach this goal, this financial goal, how do I get there?
Yeah.
So the very simple concept, but it's I think when you apply in like finance, it becomes a bit more complicated. But in that sense, I just really like the idea, so elegant, right? And then afterwards, but that's more like the passive investing. So after having like that very quantitative background, I wanted to just find out, how do people actually manage their money? And Franklin being like an actively managed or an active fund manager, then I figured like I should sort of move into that area a bit more. And I wanted to come to Singapore, and they were pretty big, and they are still pretty big in the region. Yeah, so that's how I ended up there. Yeah, what I was doing, so I was like a product manager, and then eventually was like renamed as a product specialist. So we represented strategies, from the various, I guess, investment platforms within Franklin Templeton, and that's across retail and institutional clients who have rather different needs. And then that could mean writing a lot of content, like white papers, fund commentaries, and then getting back to clients with questions, representing the strategy, like through meetings and calls, when we do a performance update, or when it's having a change in the portfolio. Yeah. And also figuring out what competitors are doing, analyzing the landscape there. Yeah. And I think that ties in quite closely to what I'm doing now, because we're also trying to get a hold of, what do investors want? Are our products fitting a gap? Can we help them to reach their financial goals? But also as we go along, right? So when we first built the product, how do we keep improving it and adapting it over time?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like the knapsack analogy. I think little things like that can actually be really useful when talking to children about money, because they love learning about these types of concepts. And I think that's a great analogy and a really simple one for people to grasp. The Moneymakers podcast is brought to you by Syfe, the place for women to learn, invest, and change the world. Syfe is an education platform for women, providing much needed courses on personal finance and investing, with a goal to increase diversity and inclusion in early stage investing. Go to syfewomen.com and use promo code podcast10 to receive a 10% discount on all of our courses. Before we jump into your role at Syfe, etc., could you give, for the benefit of our audience who don't know Syfe, who you are and who do you help and how do you help people?
Yeah, so Syfe is a Singapore headquartered and MAS licensed digital investment platform. So recently, I think last week, we just became live in Hong Kong too, and we should be launching in a few weeks' time. Yeah, so we believe that investing should be, accessible to everyone. And through our platform, we enable people through, smart, affordable, and intuitive financial solutions.
Is it a robo-advisory or is it different to a robo?
Yeah, I guess it's sort of grouped with, in this term is applied very broadly, but we do have a human team of our investment team. There's 7 of us, so we're not just purely like algorithmic, but it's very systematic. Yeah. So a lot of thought goes into the research, and then of course we rely on technology to help us optimize our portfolios.
Yeah. And who do you target? Who are your customers? What type of, demographic, but also money mindset? Are your customers people that just want to put money somewhere and have someone else manage it? Are they customers that really want to, really understand everything and every place their money's going and how it's growing? I'd love to know a bit more about that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So actually all of the above, in a way. Yeah, so we do sort of split it into 2 solutions for Singapore. So like Syfe Wealth, where it's with less self-directed, right? So it's curated and managed portfolios. And then Syfe Trade, it's more user-directed. You can go on and buy, US stocks, ETFs at really affordable fees, right? So yeah, sort of goals spans the gamut. And something that's quite interesting that we like to mention is that you might think that the users tend to maybe skew younger because it's like very app heavy, right? Or
yes,
yeah, but yeah, when we sort of surveyed our user base, it goes from 18 years old to 93 years old. So I think the use case or the gap that we're trying to fill, it addresses a lot of needs that people have. It could be someone who just wants to think of like a cash solution right? So if I just want to park my cash in a product that might give me more than what I could get in a bank savings account, which is like 0.1%, we have a solution for that. If you're someone who's, just came out of the workforce, or so just entered the workforce, just came out of school, and you want to start investing, right? And you want to start small. Let's say you just want to put $1,000, and then maybe every month you put, $300 or $400, that you can do that too. Or if you're someone who's older, like, so my parents, they're also on the platform, and I think what they're looking for and what someone younger is looking for would be quite different too. But we try to, of course, have a solution that caters to most people and across, different investment needs.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is, companies like Syfe and Stashaway, etc., are making investing a bit more accessible for people. Mm-hmm. And I would love to understand, or I think our audience would love to understand a little bit more around, are there minimum amounts? Is there a minimum amount that you would invest to make it viable, given, that there will be fees associated with investing? Mm-hmm. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, sure. So there's no minimum amount to invest. And then our cash management solution, there are no fees to it. It's absolutely zero. So, our targeted projected yield is about 1.2%, and then we've been on track to meet that. So that's, much better than like what you get in a bank, but you still have flexibility. You can withdraw money at any time. But for the investment products, there is a tiered fee range. So for instance, the lowest minimum amount is zero, right? But then up to $20,000, then the fee on that is 65 basis points. And of course, the more you invest, the fee comes down to 35 basis points.
Yeah, I think I would love to hear your view on sort of how the investing landscape has changed over time, because you talk about some of your customers being super young. 18 is very young. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, Grace, but at 18, I don't think I even understood what the term investing meant. Mm-hmm. And I certainly wouldn't have had money together and put that into any kind of investment vehicle, much to my regret now. The benefit of
same. I feel like 18, I was just like, where am I going to go to for college? And then, it's great that I feel like people are just starting younger. And I think in the past, we've had like people even younger, like, come on and say, can I join? I know you can't, because the minimum is 18.
Yes.
So I think it's always good to start having these conversations, or just thinking about it much younger. And then now, I think the biggest thing is that information is so accessible, right? And content, there's just a lot of content being created. And then even for me and my team that put out a lot of content on Syfe, where we focus a lot on investor education. And we think it's very important people know what they're getting into. And a lot of these sort of very like jargony speak that people associate with finance, like that's really changing.
Yes.
And I think that's been like a generational shift in a way. It's like, how do I make it clear? How do I make it simple? Right.
Yeah.
So like not to hide behind the jargon. So I think it's great that we are seeing, some effect of that, where people are like, they're being very interested. Yeah. So I think in that way, it's very promising. I feel like it's sort of getting younger people.
Yes, you've just touched on so many things I would love to talk to you about. So talking about age, I recently ran a financial literacy 90-minute workshop with six or seven Singapore-based university students, and they were at various academic institutions around the island, and they came along just to understand money. And it's really interesting because you talk about education and how important that is to, offer that at Syfe. And I, obviously, as a co-founder of a financial education platform, I couldn't agree more. And it's a real shame that financial education does fall through the cracks. It isn't covered at all in our education system. And I think for a lot of us, we grow up with parents who also, have been through that education system and therefore lack the skills that they probably need to be talking to us about it. And I know that you and I have spoken about this in the past about, the importance of financial education for children. But these students were obviously between 18 to 21, I believe. And, it was interesting. There was a very clear divide. Actually, there was a gender divide as well, which I found super interesting. But there was a divide in, some of them were completely starting at ground zero and needed, guidance and hand-holding from the very start. And then there were 2 or 3 that were already investing, taking a portion of their money, already investing. So really, thinking about that future. So that was very encouraging that that's happening. And to the point also on young people is the financial concepts and the jargon and all of the language generally. It is very off-putting, or it can be. And I think a lot of people feel like they need to be a Wall Street trader to understand. But I see, companies like Syfe are really helping demystify, and hopefully, my company Sophia also is as well, and making it much more relatable, not dumbing down, but just you don't need to use such complex,
approachable, right? Yeah.
Approachable, exactly. So it's very interesting that actually is attracting a new segment of people that perhaps historically not been investors. So that's super encouraging, and kudos to Syfe for being part of that movement and change.
Actually, can I ask, what were some of your own sort of personal findings from after running the workshop?
Yes, that's a really good question. You should be a podcast host.
I'm really interested, actually.
As I mentioned, there was a gender divide, which I, kind of knew that because obviously this is my area, but it was just super confronting to be in a room and see, a group of young girls consider that they have almost no financial knowledge whatsoever. And conversely, the boys of a similar age, sometimes ranking themselves, as a 10 out of 10, like full knowledge already. And so that was very interesting. But I think what I took away from that is I think young people in Singapore are, generally on a global scale, probably amongst the most, sensible youngsters. And so what I took away from that session was that they were all very focused on making enough money to spend time with their family, which is very different or looking after their family and spending time with their family, which is very different because in Europe and perhaps the West more generally, we tend to want to get away from our family. So it was as fast as possible. So it was very funny to hear that, there's very different cultural differences, but they were also striving for financial status that would allow them freedom to do, things that they wanted, but they couldn't really identify what those things were. I felt
what freedom meant.
Yeah, I felt like they had been told from a young age, just make money. Your goal in life is to make money, but to what end? What are we making money for? And when is enough? I don't think those are things, and quite rightly, they were 18 to 21 years old. You don't have all the answers at that age. So I remember at the end of the session, after an hour and a half of trying to teach them about, investing. So taking your money, spending some, saving some, and investing some, 3 different buckets. And I remember at the end thinking, oh my goodness, I don't want these young people to go away and think they must invest every penny and live, without joy. And so I remember saying to them, guys, don't forget that, there's joy to be had in having some money and spend it and enjoy that. And there's no guilt or shame attached to that whatsoever. So yeah, it will be interesting to catch up with them in 6 months and see what kind of tools they implemented that we tried to teach them.
But I know we talked about just how do you kind of start kids young, right, to have like a good relationship, like a healthy relationship about money, regardless of if they have like a lot, if they don't, compared to other families, they may not seem like they have a lot, and just how do you just have a good relationship with money, and then you sort of also think about how. So money's for spending, money's for sharing, and then money's also for investing and so on, right? So I think that's something I'm also trying to work on it with my kids.
Yeah. Well, I think you can absolutely do that. I mean, trying to get everyone to do something similar. So I don't know about you, Grace, but I give my children a $5 a week allowance, which is, not a lot of money, but they have to decide week by week what they're saving, what they're spending, and what they're investing. And they do that. And we invest together, and they save for a big item, like a big ticket item. So at the moment it's a remote controlled car, which is $80. And then the spending usually is like $1 or $2 on candy. So they've not got a lot of money, but the thing they're learning from that, it applies to you and me today, right? Even if we had $100,000. So I think you can absolutely do it. And I'd love to see more parents doing.
I think I might try that, because I always felt like I wasn't sure what age to start them on, right? I guess as long as they can count, I guess you can probably start. So maybe at like 3 or 4 years old. But yeah, I might do that starting next week or this weekend with my son.
Yeah. 5. Oh, perfect. My daughter's 5. So The data tells us that by the age of 7, a lot of our money habits are formed already. So not that you're a lost cause after 7, of course, but, I think that just compels us to start much earlier than I think we probably otherwise thought that we should. So I think 4 or 5 is probably about perfect.
Anything else that you think that we can all do, like sort of parents who have not really started, besides allowance?
There's definitely things I think we should do as parents. I think taking our children to the grocery store, looking at pricing, teaching them, my children used to think that if we ran out of money, if I didn't have money in my purse, you just go to the ATM and you just get more. So, I see my friends who have children, teenagers who are struggling with teaching them the concept of money, why can't I just have those $300 pair of trainers? They don't have the value. They don't understand the value of money.
Right.
And I think that's something that you can really teach, like, okay, well, we could buy this for $10, but this version is only $8. Which version should we get? I have those conversations with my kids in the store all the time. And then it's like,
already.
And then it's like, but
that's
this
a pretty good way, right? Because they're young, but it's a pretty easy concept for them to grasp already.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Taking them to the bank, taking them to the grocery stores, like just talking to them. There's the orange juice machines in Singapore that are $2, right? That's a great example because in the coffee shop, they're $6. And I'm saying you can have 3 orange juices for the next 3 days versus your one in the coffee shop. And like, which do you want? Like it's that kind of conversation. Which is
marshmallow test, but with orange juice.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Okay, Grace, I've really enjoyed our chat. Thank you very much. What does the future hold for you? Let's wrap up with what is the future, or what does future Grace look like? Other than starting pocket money or allowances with your 5-year-old, what else is exciting in the world of you or Syfe for you to look forward to?
Yeah, I think for Syfe, maybe I'll start there because I think that's probably the most certain, and at least. Yeah, so we've launched in Hong Kong this month, and we'll be sort of keep expanding both like the country, but also in terms of our product suite to enhance the solutions that we have. Yeah, just to be a platform that many people can rely on for their investment journey.
Fantastic.
For me personally, I don't know. I always feel like these sort of projection things are so hard to do. Yeah, like sometimes I don't even know what I'll have for lunch tomorrow, or even now. Yeah.
I'm hungry now.
Sort of decide like, okay, I'm hungry now. What should I get? Yeah, but no, I think overall, I think something that I hold quite dear is just that I want to just like keep growing, right? Both professionally and personally, and to meet more people, and then to sort of hear their opinions on what they're working on, and think of just having really important conversations with my family and with my kids.
Yeah, good. That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Tanya. My pleasure.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Money Makers podcast, brought to you by Syfe, the education platform for women that increases diversity in early stage investing. Visit SyfeWomen.com and use promo code podcast10 to receive a 10% discount on all our courses. Learn, invest, and change the world.